Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order for the day. First item on our agenda is approval of our agenda for the day.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Any citizens that would like to be heard on any item that is not on the agenda for the day? Seeing none, approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to pay bills and vouchers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve minutes of the April 21st and 28th county board meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Renewal of sentencing to serve contract. Janelle Cheney. Good morning, Janelle.
I just printed off some of the projects. So maybe I'll just pass those around. Thanks. This is my first time coming before the board in reference to STS, so I wasn't quite sure what the board was looking for. I did try to gather some information from our crew leader, and that's kind of what's on the sheet before you. The state takes great pride in the projects that they've been able to work with the county on. I know Mike Stoltman, the person prior to me, that was one of his passions. What benefit the communities could have from the relationship between the state and the county, and our position in trying to work with rehabilitating some people and their ability to give back to their communities and see something pro-social and positive come of it. Some of the projects that they worked on was landscaping at the county building and social service building. One of the ones that I would highlight is methane control project at the county landfill. Went in and released some of the pressure and then resealed the pipes. A lot of ongoing things, volunteer fire stations, trying to maintain those, cleaning the firehouses and rolling hoses when those people were off duty. Do a lot of things with nonprofit organizations, the churches. Moorhead Youth Rink is a huge one. Most recently, spring cleanup in all of the communities, Holly, Glendon, Dilworth, and Hitterdall, trying to help those folks pick up the berms and those kind of things. So a really beneficial thing. I know you guys, I think, have the contract. I think there was a slight increase from last year. I do have some printouts that our agency generates that I can pass around and leave with you to look at. It kind of talks about the ongoing projects and how many hours. I believe that from January to December there were 13,000 hours logged between how many people were on the crew and then with the crew leader.
That's pretty good. That's the same. That's just all one.
Oh.
Yeah, each stapled packet is a different type of report generated.
All right. Okay, any questions for
Well, Mr.
Janelle?
Chairman, obviously I like to see all of the different things that they do throughout our county community to utilize their services, and it also then means we don't have to spend money in other ways to see some of these things done. One thing that Mike was really good about doing in the past was you just mentioned about the 13,000 hours.
Yep.
He kind of gave us a report to indicate what value that was. I don't know exactly how he arrived at an hourly rate or what he used there.
Okay.
I'm assuming that he must have got something from HR or something to determine But I think when we, not only when you list these things, but, you know, when you talk about those hours, convert that to a dollar
Okay,
number for us.
Sure.
You know, because we're also investing.
Yep.
And so when we invest, it's nice to see what our investment brings back to us. Okay, maybe there's something here now.
And I think some of that is in the report, and I think Mike probably
Are these all different?
put that in layman's term.
Yeah, Mike would do a summary of it.
Okay, all right. And it's my understanding that it results in approximately $7 an hour. And so in meeting with the STS crew leader, he indicated, one of the projects I think was that they did the roof tear off, but then had another company come in and re-roof and those kind of things. So the labor that the county is looking at investing is at $7 an hour versus if you bring in other contractors, it would be substantially higher. But I will certainly work at getting more concrete information.
And there might be more stuff here I didn't see till just now, so.
Well, we've gone over this many times, and there's no question it's beneficial, I think, to the county, and that we save a considerable amount of money by utilizing this, so I think it's a great
My
program.
only thing on, Mr. Chairman, is that we sit here and we know about it. I like the record to
It's good,
indicate
yeah,
it for the
to-
public when if they decide they want to do research on this themselves and see what's in the minutes, that we have accurate data that backs up the investment. That's all I'm saying, so.
Sure.
Any other questions for Janelle?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Ms. Cheney, do you know if this contract has changed substantially since the last time that we renewed?
I do not believe so. I think there was a slight increase,
In the
maybe
cost.
reflecting 3%.
Okay. The terms look consistent with what we've signed previously?
Yep.
Okay. I did review it just quickly this morning, and it looks very standard, and I would, usually like to look at it comparatively with what we've signed before, but I don't see any problems from what I'm seeing, so.
When you say there's an increase, who are we paying this money to? Are we paying the state this money? So we can use the prisoners to help out? If we wouldn't have this contract, we couldn't use the prisoners to work in these?
Yeah.
You could have, and I think that is floating out there, the idea of having just a county crew go out. And that's certainly something that the state or the county could take into consideration. The state is providing the crew leader and then also the equipment, including the van, trailers.
Oh, okay.
They also provide the training. They also cover, I believe, the insurance liability if someone on the crew were injured, those kind of things.
Okay.
We
For
have
managing and supervising. the
And we have two
program.
different groups that go out. We have this Sentence to Serve group, which is really through the state. Then we have our own county group that is done right through our sheriff's department. And each of them can act and work in different areas and have different opportunities to work, so.
Ryan, did you have something?
Well, Mr. Chair, yes, and in response to Commissioner Gross's, that is paid to the state. It's 75% of the cost of the function, and that includes the van and the personnel. There is a supervisor that goes along with it. And yes, I think for the last 2 to 4 years, Julie, we have been in discussion. The county also runs a work crew, and there's been discussion of efficiencies and what advantage this is to have to the state, because the state also goes out of the county to do DNR boat landings
Correct.
and different things as well. So, and in some days they don't go out because of weather and things. So we've looked at, could that employee be more helpful around the jail? So we thought, just for discussion purposes, that we thought maybe it would be okay to go for another 2 years, and then when we have a new facility and the coordination of it, discuss that with, and see if anything has changed with the programs at that time, and see what we'd recommend to the board.
Thank you. Board's wishes.
I'd move approval of the contract.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, request to fill deputy appraiser position.
Was there just one of these that was passed around?
Morning, your neighbor. Morning.
So I'm here to request that we be able to fill a deputy appraiser's position in our office. Teresa Softing is retiring after roughly 29 years.
Wow.
So we are hopeful we can find someone to replace her. The deputy appraiser's position is assigned to grade 16, and looking at the savings, if we place a new person on step 1, it'd be right around $13,000 savings.
Mr. Nees, okay. Are we going to be, the deputy appraiser, do they, along with that title, are there certain requirements that we have, like we do for you for?
Yes, there is a definite license level that this person will need to get. Under current law, it needs to be an AMA, which is accredited Minnesota appraiser, and that person will have 4 years from the date of hire, basically, to get it.
And if we have somebody who's already done that, if we're out in the market and somebody's already done that, would it be likely that we're going to be able to hire them at the grade A to C?
I would say no, but
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Nancy.
I think it'd be good for us to recognize that many years of service that Teresa's doing on. and,
Absolutely, 29 years.
Yeah,
It's- Congratulations from the county
She's done a
board.
lot of work with townships, I know, over all those years, and she's done a really good job, and I just want to thank her for that, so.
Approval of final documents for landfill scale project. Kirk?
A little bit early here. That's a present for me, really. Nathan was going to be here as well, but the highway department has a different time zone, as we know, so he'll be showing up here probably about 9 o'clock.
They obviously have trains to do.
You got that right, there's no doubt about it. What we have before you here today is essentially, it's the last payment for the scale. And as you know, during the project, a portion is retained until the project is complete, and the project is complete. So the payment request at this time is for $18,000 approximately, and at that point in time, the scale project will be complete. So that's what you have before us at this time.
So the actual amount is less than...
Right. The total amount of the project is less than what we originally had anticipated, so that's a good thing.
That doesn't happen very often, so... that's
Well,
what
we're
it is.
spending the money on other places, so it's a good thing.
Oh, you had to ruin it.
Sorry.
Commissioner Gross and I did have a chance to head out to the landfill and see it, and they did a really nice job.
That's, yeah, maybe you can talk about,
Needs a road improvement.
we did some mudding out there. We
Oh,
took
as you
the-
come in?
We took the van out, and it was kind of when the frost was coming out of the ground, and it was kind of muddy out there, and it was kind of an exciting ride around the perimeter.
He gave us a tour of the place where the payloader should only be going.
And a Minuteman.
So that's all I have on this particular item.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
While I've
Thanks,
got your
sir.
attention, I've got a couple other items, and since I have some extra time, I just wanted to report on the electronics collection, the cleanup. It was unbelievable. We essentially filled 5+ semi-trailers full of electronics. That's TVs, computers, things like that. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And I was pretty impressed by the amount of material we got. We're having another collection this week in Holly. We had one in Barnesville. That was a big success. We didn't have quite as many people as we Good. Hi, Nathan.
We're done, Nathan, we don't. Come on.
We are done, but that's all right. So anyway, that was a pretty positive thing. We also got, we didn't get quite as many people on the paint collection, but we got more material, so that was a pretty positive thing as well. The other item I was going to mention just briefly is Full Circle, the recycling operation. As we've talked about, we've picked a preliminary site out adjacent to the landfill. They have submitted a permit application to the state of Minnesota for the PCA, and they'll be also coming back to the county next month for a conditional use permit for the site out at the landfill. And as part of that process, there obviously will be a public hearing at the Planning Commission. So I just want to report on that as well. It's a positive thing. I think that'll keep an awful lot of waste out of the landfill, so I think it's a really good thing.
And which facility is this now?
This is a Full Circle Organics. This is the
Oh,
one
that's
that's
the
going to be
organic.
organic, right,
Okay.
right. And we, the only thing that the county has to do with that is essentially provide a site, and that's
So are
it.
we looking right north?
Just north of,
Landfill?
right.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? How about for Nathan, since he came early and we already had everything done, so.
I pimped you a little bit, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I guess the project turned out well. We were happy to help with it, with what we could, and today they're going to be paving the last of the concrete out there, so that phase will be done, and then it'll be a matter of just bringing in some topsoil and seeding it.
Do you guys put somebody out there to inspect while it's being done?
We are, yeah, we have been.
They've been really good. I mean, they did a really good job up at the motor vehicles, and they did a really nice job for us out there as well, so it was greatly appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you,
Thank you
gentlemen.
both.
Okay, thank you.
Update on Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, Les Bakke. Good morning, Les.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to listen to me for a couple of minutes. I should make it easy for you. I'm not here trying to convince you to do or not do something. And more importantly, I'm not here to ask for any money.
Yeah,
So it should
we
be-
always like that.
Should be kind of good. The Beyond the Yellow Ribbon in Moorhead is an organization that was certified by the state of Minnesota a few years ago. Mayor Mark Boxlin and General Larry Shellito and then Captain Aaron Krenz got together, all of whom are MSU alum, by the way. Anyhow, they got together and they held an informational meeting over at MSUM. And Mayor Boxlin asked for volunteers to be part of the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon. And I was lucky enough to volunteer, and we've done things. We were organized with the state of Minnesota in 2011. We became a 501c3 in 2012. The state recognized us the summer of 2012 as a Beyond the Yellow Ribbon community. I don't know if you got this little report or not. Did you, in your packet?
No.
If not, this is the same report, one page. I know you guys love reading, so it's only one page. It's what I gave to the city about 3 weeks ago. And it explains what we are. And I'm going to just add a couple things to it. The primary purpose of the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon is to help the families of the service people, the veterans, the deployed individuals, activated individuals, because the military tends to take good care of the people in the military, but we sometimes forget the families. And some of the examples of what we've done are in there. I'm going to highlight one of them. We had a young wife and child who had bald tires on her car. And we contacted a Moorhead businessman, and he said he'd sell us the tires at cost. Well, when the car came in there, he realized the brakes were shot and a few other things. So he replaced those at his own expense and only charged us for the replacement of the tires on the car, so that the soldier overseas in Iraq at the time didn't have to worry about his wife and child, little girl, driving with such things. We work very closely with Clay County Veterans Service Office and the staff there. And of course, we work with the local veteran service organizations. Our most recent event that was quite successful is we raised $4,300 for an honor flight for the Korean-era veterans. You may remember the World War II veterans were on an honor flight going to Washington, D.C. a few years back, and now the group is working on the other thing. We also, last fall, raised $1,000. No, we raised $4,000 for the Veterans Home in Fergus Falls and the VA Recreational Fund over in Fargo. So that's what we do. I just wanted you to know what we're doing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Les. Any questions? I'm serve on the Beyond Yellow Ribbon. It's always amazes me. I'm impressed every time I go, how the commitment to the veterans and what they're trying to accomplish for veterans and their families. So I thank you for that. And any questions from the board for Les?
Thank you, Les.
No,
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you, Les.
Okay, well, we're moving right along this morning. Rezoning recommendation, so.
Mr.
looks like
Chair?
We need.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm just kind of wondering about that item. We probably don't wait till 9:05 because
Yeah,
there
we'll
may be
wait.
some
Yeah.
outside interests.
Yeah.
We better wait.
We'll do some committee reports. Wayne, you have your committee reports?
On Tuesday, May 5th, Moore Planning Commission. General business, we had a public hearing for a final plat approval for Split Rock construction, which is east of Highway 75, north of 8th Avenue North, and west of County Ditch 41. It was approved by the Planning Commission, and this will now be sent to the City Council for final approval. On Wednesday, May 6th, Clay County Collaborative Governance Board meeting. General business, we went over the fiscal year 2015 budget and then the 2016 proposed budget. We went over the work groups' plans and budgets for the year, and the work groups are the School Age Disabilities Group, Children's Mental Health, Family Support Model, Substance Abuse Problem Solving, Restorative Justice, Truancy Interaction Program, and the Reentry Service Program. And we re-elected Cindy Fagerly as chair of the collaborative, and Cindy is chair of the Ward School Board at this time. Thursday, May 7th, Local Advisory Council for Children's Mental Health. General business, and we discussed the Local Advisory Council's upcoming 25th anniversary. Working on materials for the county website, and then agency reports from Clay County Social Services, the Clay County Collaborative, Clay County Public Health, Lakeland Mental Health, the Mobile Crisis Unit, Lakes and Prairies Head Start, Kindred Family Services, Clay County Juvenile Detention Center, and Solutions. On Friday, May 5th, Adult Mental Health Local Advisory Council Executive Meeting. We went over many aspects of the county's relationship and activities with the agencies which deal with mental health. Prepaid medical plans, medical assistance, and who chooses what regarding insurance coverage were discussions, concerns, and looked into some answers for those. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Frank.
Yesterday morning, I went to Hawley for the Heartland Trail meeting. Big discussion was on the right-of-way, and we found out that some of these township roads really have no right-of-way. You know, there's nothing really set out that there's planned right-of-way. We'd have to get an easement or something for all those roads. And we also worked with one of the owners, the first 2 miles of that coming out of the Buffalo Park. He was at the meeting. We called him up and he came to the meeting, and we were going right through his land with the trail, and he was sort of opposed to that, but he gave us a very good alternative. So he was very cooperative and came up with a good alternative to it. So it was a very good meeting with that owner. Last night I went to the Hagen Township meeting. They're concerned about a lot of the irrigation that's starting to go in up there. I think some of the farmers' wells, one of the farmers' wells went dry because there's so much irrigation going on, you know, so they're concerned about I don't know where we get the permits to get these irrigations that they can go in, you know, and I think they have to go through the DNR or something like that.
I would think so, yeah.
And they're concerned about what's happening to
There's the guy to ask right here.
Yeah, so, then they're talking about, you know, some of this irrigation is, some of the water runoff from there, it's gone into the ditches and stuff like that. So they're concerned about the irrigation, and they're also concerned, big concern on the maintenance of the roads up there.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Frank, you know, the issue with the irrigation, you know, it's even like in all the wells that are out there, I think they have to be monitored, and Tim, maybe you can help out, but I always thought that there was a certain level of water that you could draw. I didn't know that it was just open-ended and you could just draw from the aquifer.
Evidently, it's causing some farmers
Do
not
you know
to have
anything
water.
about that, Tim?
If you're going to use center pivot irrigation, you need a water appropriation from Minnesota DNR, and
Yeah.
they are not open-ended. It's for up to so many millions of gallons a year.
That's what I thought, so. But what they're saying is, some are saying they're
Yeah, one farmer had to get his well dug deeper because
they ran dry.
Well, then they need to talk to the DNR, because if you're appropriating water and you prove to be impacting other wells, then it's your responsibility to fix them. But that's an issue with DNR.
Okay, I'll get back to that on them. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have.
That's it, Jenny?
I had the Joint Powers meeting last week where we had an update from Police Chief Ebinger on the street crimes unit, and basically to just inform more members of the committee leadership what is going on with that and how they're trying to kind of nip it before it gets out of control. I attended a senior luncheon in Rolog to introduce myself as the commissioner from the district, but also just to kind of field any questions that they had. A topic that was very common was the jail, and just had questions on that, where the majority, and maybe Mr. Berg can report on that too, but was positive and supportive. I attended the Tansom Township meeting. They had some questions on a county road, and they signed their maintenance agreement for the county. Overall, they just really appreciate what we do, but had some concerns as well. I also attended the Buffalo Red River Watershed meeting last night. There were several concerned citizens on some upcoming projects, and nothing that's set in stone, but just at the comment period. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Kevin?
I just had the one meeting last week, and that was on the Clay County Joint Powers Board, and Jenny gave a good recap of that, so nothing further to add.
Thank you. I had Minnesota Rural Counties Caucus meeting last week, and we had general business issues, but our main topic of discussion was the legislative session and transportation, which is the main priority for MRCC this year, and it's been a lot of stuff going on, and it's gotten kind of frantic here the last couple weeks trying to get transportation funding for rural and greater Minnesota, so we'll see how it goes, because I think things are coming to an end now. So, and then I had a meeting in St. Cloud with for AMC for the annual conference planning committee, which they put me on. So that we're working on the conferences in St. Cloud this year, and then the following year it's in Minneapolis again. So. We'll have some more meetings in the future. I'll probably have some more to report. So that was it for me. Brian?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Vicki and I are doing some work on the bonding bill application. Representative Lean sent us some information on next year's bonding application, and there's some timelines on that. So I guess I'm making the assumption that since you folks were supportive of asking the state legislature for bonding money this year, that you would be wishing us to continue our pursuit of getting on the bonding bill next year for some dollars for the jail. we don't, as this year, we thought it was a long shot, maybe going through the formal process and getting, this is submitted to OMB, and they review it, and the governor reviews it for his budget, and there's a tour of the facilities and different things. So we may have a better chance next year, because that is a bonding year and the formal process. So I'm assuming you'd want us to invest some time in doing that. I'm seeing head nods, so we'll continue.
Yeah, Kevin?
Yeah, Brian, we're going at this in two different angles. We're going at on the bonding side, and then we've also had discussion about getting permission to possibly do a local option sales tax for the jail.
Well,
now, it's my understanding that the local option sales tax issue would have to be on the ballot during the general election in 2016. Is that correct?
that is correct.
And so we don't go to the legislature till after that's passed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, then it would make sense that we would first try the bonding like we did this last year, because that would happen during the course of the spring of
16.
16.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Bonding's for next session, and then the vote would be the following. We'd actually, if the vote passed in the fall of 16, then we would go
Yeah.
in this
Well,
17 session.
But if the bond issue passed, there would still be the need to go for the other one, but it would
Right.
be at a reduced
Right.
amount. Okay.
Brian, anything else?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I did spend a little time with the city administrator out of Dilworth in regards to the dispatch discussion funding issue. He had contacted me, and so he understood the concept and what needed to be done there. So I thought that was a good discussion. Attended the Joint Powers Agreement group last Thursday morning, and Commissioner Mojo has reported on that, I think, adequately. That presentation took up 45 minutes of the hour meeting, so it was a pretty thorough discussion of what was going on with criminal activity in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and I don't know that you can cover it in 45 minutes, but there's a lot going on and a lot of concern. We had county management team last week as well. We also, Julie, Bill, and from the Sheriff's Department and the Chief of Police, we had a conference call last Friday with an individual that they have done several, I'll say public-private partnerships on funding and building the jails, and we listened to their concerns, and we'll be discussing that later on at our meeting. But they're going to get back to with us some figures and timelines and different things before we involve you folks in it. This was pretty much a sales call, I can say, but we listened and exchanged ideas on it. And yesterday I did spend some time, the sheriff and Mr. Mojo was there as well, with the senior citizen group down at Rolog. And the topic was the jail issue, and Gary Bergen, who is the chair of the Township Officers Association and is also on our jail construction committee, had invited us down there to talk to that group, and pretty perceptive. I mean, as Commissioner Mojo said, they're interested and they understand what's going on. You'd think living out in the rural area they wouldn't understand necessarily what's going on here necessarily, but they really did. They and very supportive of what was needed. And working with Tim Magnuson on a motion that you folks had passed some time ago, that if there is some interest around here in obtaining some property in anticipation of the jail, that we should make contact and move forward on that. And we've had some pretty good success in regards to that. So we'll come to the board in future time.
Kevin?
Brian, I think we want to be careful. I think right now our intention is for the jail to be constructed on this current site.
Absolutely.
misunderstanding of a report that was put in the media here last week regarding a comment that I made when we had our joint sessions with the school district when I asked about the property to the east over here and what we're looking at for any properties that would be outside of our campus would strictly be used for the purpose of an LEC. Our intentions are not to move the jail from its current location, and we just always need to be careful about that when we talk about that. So,
Anything else, Brian?
No, let's do it, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay.
but Mr. Chair, I do want to follow up too. I know through our committee there has been some, and I may have said this before, but there has been some communications, and I know there's members of this board that like these updates. So, but we've actually had some of our area residents close by who have actually contacted us with interest in a potential purchase of their property for our needs, and the areas where they have been, those folks that have been contacting us happen to be the area where we think it would fit well within our plan. And so obviously if that works out, we should be responding to them and getting that done as soon as possible. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Rezoning recommendation from Planning Commission concerning BRB LLC request to remove the Urban Expansion District overlay from Parcel Planning and Environmental Programs Director Tim Magnuson. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Let's see, what do I have to turn on here? The last meeting, the Planning Commission heard a request to remove an overlay zoning district from a parcel of property that abuts the city of Moorhead on 46th Avenue South, just east of Highway 75, maybe an eighth of a mile or so on 46th Avenue. And as soon as this comes up, we'll...
Mr. Chair? Tim, for those listening, could you define overlay district, please? Thank you.
Yes, we have several overlay districts in Clay County. There's an underlying zoning district, and if we think that there's a need for other protection in the area, we have applied an overlay district. We have one for aggregate materials. We have one for wellheads. We have one for natural areas in the county. And this one is, the Urban Expansion District is an overlay district that's applied not necessarily exactly where the city of Moorhead and Dilworth's 2-mile jurisdiction is, but it pretty much covers the majority of that area where the 2-mile jurisdiction for the city exists. It was put in place to give some additional protection in there from things that could normally happen in the county that you might not want to have happening in that close a proximity to the community. And it was also intended to take into consideration future land use and area growth plans of the communities. So that's what the overlay district does. The County Planning Commission heard this at their April 21st meeting. There was a lot of discussion on it. The motion was made, in the end, the motion was made with 2 nay votes to recommend to you as the county board that the overlay district not be removed from this 7.88 acre parcel. The primary reason for that was it was not consistent with either the county's comprehensive plan or the comprehensive plan of the city and their future land use districts and growth areas. The property, as I said, is located just south of 46th Avenue right here, 7.88 acres, give or take, right there. It's been in that condition. I mean, it's been used as ag land for as long as I've been here. There used to be a house here and a house, there still is a house here. There's agricultural land down here, although it is a zone commercial for the county and the township. And then you get down here, you get to the Red River Bus Barns, about a quarter mile to the south. And from there down to 50th Avenue, there's some commercial use along the highway right there. If you look on the west side of the road, the city of Moorhead, that's, I don't know if it's Hampton Estates, I think is the name of the subdivision over there. And then up here, this is, as I understand it, all slated for residential development. You can see this is all going to be single family. I don't know exactly what this is intended to be, but I know Christy Lashowski from the City of Moorhead Planning Office is here, so you can inquire there. The applicants for the rezoning, their intent, if the rezoning is granted, would be to construct about 101 use store facilities right here. They had initially planned an office space there, but at the Planning Commission meeting, it was brought up that they would just put the storage facilities there, and the office would be moved to another site. So the intent would be that if this is removed, that this commercial use would be put in place at that site. This is from the city's future land use map, and this is the area that we're talking about right here. They have currently worked back a quarter mile off of Highway 75, or I believe it's a quarter mile, with their future land use map, and have designated this area as low to mid density and I believe high density residential in the future. And from their growth area plan, it shows the same. That'd be the area right up here, which is, whoop, excuse me. You can see it's indicated here in their land use map and here in their growth area plan as being utilized in the future for residential purposes, not commercial. The last item I'll show you is that Moorhead Township has all the property in the yellow hash zoned commercial. This vacant property here is a property known as the Marbrack subdivision. It was platted back in the 70s as a commercial subdivision, and you can see that since I think it's 1975 when it was platted, give or take, there has been no development there. And there probably would be issues with this being a commercial development right now because it does not access Highway 75, and MnDOT would have to approve accesses into that site for future use, especially for future commercial use. Like I said, you've got the bus barns down here, and you've got a couple of residences out here, and then you've got some small commercial going on right down here. So from this site, you've got almost a quarter mile of gap before you get to any active commercial. And then as you go north, you've got about a half a mile before you get to commercial on the north side, and that would be up at 40th Avenue where the new Hornbachers is being constructed up there. In the city's future land use, they would like to see residential like this mirrored right over here onto the east side of the highway. You've got everything, you had everything in your packets that we had at the Planning Commission. I hope you had a chance to review that. I guess I'd be open for questions. Like I said, the Planning Commission's recommendation to you was that you support them in not removing this zoning designation from the property because it does not conform with either the county or the city, actually city, county, and township comprehensive plans. There was a resolution in your packet also, came from the City Moorhead Council, that pretty much states the same thing. They were not in support of seeing this occur at that location because of what their future land use plans are for the area. There was a question we talked about earlier that, you know, this property is all zoned commercial. When the city ultimately annexes it, their authority extends out there, and this commercial zoning, I'm assuming, will be removed, and it will be zoned what the city would like to see it in the future. The city has no obligation to to keep the zoning that's in place right now as county and township zoning in place when they annex the property. The applicants are here, the two gentlemen out here.
Mr. Chair, Tim, what is the timeline for the city to annex this?
That would be a question I would ask you direct to Christy Lashowski from City Planning. She is here.
Christie's coming up.
Thank you, Christie. My question was in relation to what Tim said. What is the timeline of the city to annex this, from your
Morning,
knowledge?
Commissioners, Chair
Good morning.
Ingersoll. The timeline for annexation is unknown at this point. This particular area is currently outside of our infrastructure service area. And so typically what the city does is it annexes property or considers petition for annexation for areas which are able to be serviced with municipal utilities. The
Could
city
be several years.
Yes, the city engineer has indicated that this particular area, because it's outside of the sewer service area, would possibly require some trunk line infrastructures be installed prior to servicing the site.
Thank you.
Frank?
That area just north of 46, right beside Highway 75. What is that zone as? High density?
Yes, right now, if you drive by, you'll see townhomes, apartment buildings, basically everything to the west of Stone Mill Trail and east of Highway 75 will be 316 mixed multifamily units. The sort of backward L-shaped right at the corner of Highway 75 and 46th is currently owned by the city. It is bisected by a 50-foot pipeline easement, so there is not a lot of buildable area, and it is zoned for mixed use. So it could be small commercial or small residential, but because of the impact of the pipeline easement, there's not a lot of area to work with.
Christy, can you show me exactly where you just referenced on that map, that right there
Yep.
could potentially be small commercial, is what you just said?
Yes, more of a neighborhood commercial.
Like a gas station, or is that your?
No.
Okay.
No, gas station would not be allowed, no.
Yeah, the pipeline.
More like a coffee shop or
Yeah.
something very small, and that would fit into the neighborhood.
You can see the pipeline comes right up here, crosses the road, and then angles off to the west here again. I'm pretty sure that's why that property line is the way it is, so.
So it was I serve on the planning commission. I just want to clarify. So from what I was told by the city, what you envision is to mirror image what is on the west side of Highway 75 to the east side, correct? Is that the grand vision?
The future land use plan and growth area plans did include that within them, yes.
Okay. But you can't mirror image it if there's room for the small commercial that you just talked about, right?
If you flip back to the future land use map, you'll see that that area was designated as some sort of institutional, which could be like a school, a religious institution,
Police station.
something like that, yeah. And so the mixed-use district, again, it's owned by the city, so ultimately, if a proposal were brought forward, it could be approved or denied by the city, depending on what the use was. But it was really intended to just keep the options open. But like I said, because it's such a very small area, I'm not really sure if you'll see, it definitely will not be a high intense use on the parcel at all.
And the question I guess that I have with this whole issue is I understand the vision of Moorhead, that you want to develop it, but I also understand from the investor point, if you're talking years and people own something, I just have a hard time with when it's zoned commercial currently, but yet we want it to be residential in the future. I guess that's the disconnect that I have, and I had, and I think there's some of the people on the planning commission had as well.
And I understand that, and I think that's probably why the urban expansion district exists. because if you look at it, it says the purpose of it is to work with cities and townships within Clay County to identify planned urban growth areas that have the potential to be served with appropriate range of public services in a cost-effective manner within which efficient and orderly growth can be facilitated within the next 20 years, and discourage development from occurring at unsewered urban densities outside of cities until urban services can be provided in an orderly and efficient manner. So that is the goal of the urban expansion district, and it is understood that these areas which are directly abutting or right outside of city boundaries are possibly attractive in the market because they don't have special assessments, because they don't have utilities, and they may or may not comply with the county, city, and/or township planned development for that area. But I think that the purpose of the urban expansion district, which is already in the county land development code, is really for this exact purpose.
But also their plan does not call for pipe, right? They're not going to be needing water services.
No. The proposed use was not going to need municipal facility or utilities.
For that one parcel.
Right.
Were the owners, excuse me,
No, go ahead, Frank.
were the owners aware of this overlay district when they bought their?
Yes.
Can they speak?
Yes, yeah, you gentlemen, sure, you can go to the microphone.
Well, thanks for, I have to apologize, I'm unprepared because I wasn't aware that this would actually be open for discussion on it. And, so I thank you for your time. We are looking for a little direction as far as the next step, what we should do. The information covered so far has been accurate. We looked at the map, it was zoned commercial. As far as the urban overlay, my bad on not due diligence. I'm looking farther into it, but when I look at it, what we're asking is, we're putting in our storage facility. We would work closely with the city or the county, whoever, as far as aesthetics. I mean, if they wanted evergreen trees around it, or if they, we do plan to have a gated facility. We plan to have it dressed up quite nice. Ray and I recently built the Microtel Hotel up in Moorhead, and we're very proud of what we put in. So we would also make this look very nice. And as Commissioner Montague brought up, waiting for 2 years is something I have asked Christie about being petitioned in, and as she explained, that's not ready because of the sewer. I've also asked, well, then if we can't build a commercial, can we build residential? And I've been told no on that either because, again, we're back. They don't want private wells and septic systems. So I do feel awful handcuffed on what we can do since it was zoned commercial. Also, there is power lines running here down to the Red River. I have a hard time imagining a real desirable residential area being built right on the highway. As you know, they're redoing 75, and they do not they want as little access as possible. So I just don't see a lot of residential use right in this area. And we also have the radio tower down there, or the radio station. It's just not a real desirable place to put a home, and that's why I thought light commercial would be a great fit. And that's pretty much what we're after. So I'm looking for some direction from the county as far as what our next step. We're probably going to approach the city and their planning committee and see what they would, if there's any flexibility in our plan up there. But that's sort of where we're at. We're sort of caught in between. Ray, you have anything to add? Or?
No, I think that's pretty fair, and thanks, for letting us speak here today. But I think I'm too small to reach, but I can slow up here. If this isn't going to be houses in here, if this is going to be some kind of commercial, and again, this is our property, and Tim said it accurately today. This is only a quarter mile in between here, and like Brent said, we have talked to the DOT, they don't want ingress and egress off of here. They want to widen Highway 75, and then you're pretty much commercial from here all the way down to the roundabout to the south. You've got a cabinet guy, you've got the radio tower, you've got, the state has their, I call it kind of dump pile there, if you will, and then you've got Morgan Marine. It's all commercial all the way through. So if you look at our property in conjunction with whatever else is going on, I think we kind of fit in, and like Brent had said, I mean, we'd be willing to work with county, city, whatever, to make this look, to spend the extra dollars to make it look aesthetically appealing as you guys would deem necessary. And based on what can only happen here, I think we would kind of fit in. And then as far as the city and housing, this is just, it's wide open for houses. But again, I'm no housing development person, but I just find it difficult to believe that anybody's going to really want to put in a whole litany of homes right here, which I call commercial way, a quarter mile from here to the bus garages. So it's kind of what I see.
I agree, and I totally get the urban expansion. As a former county commissioner myself, I understand that, and if we were trying to put up a turkey processing plant or something, you bet. I mean, that's what that's in place for, is to stop a very negative development. But I really believe we could fit in and be an asset to the area.
Wayne, do you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember just a few minutes ago, Christie said maybe several years, city annexing that part. I remember many years ago, Mike Hewlett and I were both at City Hall at the same time, and they talked about the beginning of annexing Oakport Township, and that's nearly 40 years ago. And it just took place January 1st of this year. So these things do not happen overnight. And from what I hear, these gentlemen do not need sewer or water.
We changed our plan at the meeting.
For what
got
you're
good
doing.
information.
And right now, from what I hear, I don't have a big concern with what they're after.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So 29 there, that's the only parcel that's yours, right?
Correct.
Is that the one in the blue there? And you're talking about storage units similar to what we see. There's a few of them right in my district here in North Moorhead. There's
15th
one,
Avenue.
15th Avenue, I think of, on Highway 75. And by the way, that is right next to a residential area. And there's one straight on 11th Street North here, right next to residential property. And, I also look at those as beneficial to what could be happening straight to the north with the apartments. A lot of folks that go into those types of facilities don't have room for all of their, whether it be toys or what have you, and need places to store it. And obviously, we'd rather see things stored inside than outside. It just makes for much better appearance. So I think from the standpoint of even if the city did want to go forward with the one area where I may disagree with you a little bit about MnDOT not wanting access there, they may not, but I don't see any access on the west side either. In that, there's just one on the north and one to the south.
For ours?
No, I'm talking about for the residential
Other side
area.
of the highway.
There's none there either, but they've worked out a traffic pattern where they can still gain access to Highway 75 without abutting it there in several different places. So residential could go there. The interesting thing in all this is the one who owns all that. You said that quarter-mile area there. Whoever owns all that, it's zoned commercial, and it doesn't really matter if they wouldn't want to put residential there. It's probably not going to happen. I don't know what that owner's intentions are. They haven't been involved in this process. But I too, I fully respect what the city would like to do in their comprehensive plan. And keeping urban sprawl from getting too far out, so that there is a need for residential properties in Moorhead. But at the same point, there is a need. To me, what you're requesting is something that can fit into residential neighborhoods.
And that's what drew us there, was just what you mentioned, those apartments and those townhomes, just for the exact reasons you mentioned, yep.
It could, I often see where we migrate from commercial to maybe multi-use family, multi-use apartments, and then back off of the main strip, you start getting into your residential properties, and I think that makes good planning.
Mr. Chair?
But I don't know where we should go on this, but.
Wayne?
Yeah, I'd also like to, maybe at the point of repeating myself, you don't need the millions upon millions of dollars of infrastructure that has to take place down the line for the city to go forward here. And I think what Commissioner Campbell said, what you're looking at does fit in. It can be very aesthetically taken care of, like the one on North Moorhead on 15th Avenue and Highway 75. But all I have to say on that.
Tim, I just, if we remove the overlay district, then would the city still have to approve their project, or how does that? No?
The city has no approval authority there, but as Mr. Strand has indicated, they would like to work with the city and the county to make sure that what they do place there is appropriate. There's also a gateway issue along Highway 75. Christie could explain that more, but anyway, to make it aesthetically pleasing,
Jenny, you had a question?
I have a question in regards to the parcel, but your plan calls for using about a third of the property, is that correct?
Right.
Right. Do you have a vision for what you want that extra 2/3? Are you going to be coming back wanting 2/3 of it in more storage, or are you just hold on for it for a future residential possibly, or you don't know?
We want to make sure the boat floats first.
Okay.
Yep.
Kevin?
Is it your intentions that all storage that would happen there would be inside storage?
Yes.
I know there's some areas, we have one that's just north on Highway 75, it's what's known as the Track 3 area of Oakport and Moorhead. It's not within the city limits, but it's similar to this. But they also, out there, we also allow large campers, and that gets to be I don't think that would be an appropriate deal in this area that you're talking about.
Totally agree. It'd look like junkyard. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they do a really nice job. I don't want to say that theirs looks like a junkyard by any means, but you do have all this stuff outside that is more of a true highway commercial setting out there, whereas this is really close to, whether it's multifamily or single-family housing, it's got to fit in with both of those.
Frank, you had something?
Yeah, I attended that planning commission meeting also, and I realized what the planning commission is recommending. They had two of them that had nay votes, but I also saw there was a lot of hesitation. Not a lot of hesitation. There was hesitation on a couple of the other votes. And it seems to me right now, what they're planning on doing it's all, they're talking about commercial on the north side of 46, commercial on the south side. They were understanding it was all commercial when they purchased it, and I just don't understand where it's causing a problem. And I too perceive that probably being commercial going down 75, but I'm not on the plan. I'm not on the Moorhead planning. They probably envisioned something different, but when you're looking at high density on the north side of that with apartment houses, I agree with Kevin. I mean, it's almost the perfect fit for what they're asking for.
Anyone else who would like to be heard? Mike, come on up to the podium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Whalen and members of the County Commission, I'm Mike Hewlett, a member of the Moorhead City Council, and this is my ward over here, Ward 3. At the City Council meeting, the vote was 8-0 to maintain the overlay so that we would have the option down the road to develop this into residential area. We would really like to see a mirror image on the other side. We just recently opened up a process to take bids from developers to develop all of that into single-family homes just right there, kitty corner from this. We've had no indication of anyone wanting to do any commercial on that corner. And I frankly think it would be very unlikely that there would be any commercial put in on that corner, but I don't know. As a representative of the 3rd Ward, I can tell you that I got more calls on this issue from people here than almost any issue I've had lately. The only thing that topped it was when I was trying to get a roundabout put in down here. They were really against that. And so the folks who live in here are really hoping that our overlay plan prevails and that you have a sweep of residential that goes there and I think ultimately out there. I'm not sure, Christy, but I think we're down to about 1.5 years of buildable lots left right now. My neighbor sold his house without even listing it. Houses are selling in Moorhead. You've seen the building going on. We're running out of lots. And so I think that these areas are going to be developed sooner than later. And as a member of the Moorhead City Council and a 3rd Ward person and as a citizen of Clay County, I would ask that you uphold the County Planning Commission's thoughts on this. I believe there were only 2, maybe 3 dissenting votes, and also that you comply or go along with the wishes of your fellow elected officials on the Moorhead City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, we really like these guys because they are developing in Moorhead. That Microtel is a fantastic property, a real asset to the south side of Moorhead. As an elected official, we expressed at our meeting our gratitude to these guys for the wonderful work that they're doing within the city. And these are the people we want to work with to try to find good solutions for where to build and how. And so I just want to get that into the record too, that in fact I think Ray is one of my constituents just down the road over here. So obviously I have constituents with different opinions on almost everything, but I just want to say that we really like these guys and appreciate what they're doing for Moorhead.
Thanks, Mike. Kevin?
So what do we say to somebody who buys something that is zoned commercial and they're thinking that what they have is going to fit? They bought this property to do something commercial, like they admitted to maybe not researching deep enough to get into what the overlay requirements were. They've admitted that. But the fact of the matter is right now they could put something commercial there if it coincided with the overlay.
Right. The overlay pretty much removes the commercial aspect of the districts, though. That's why it's an interesting overlay. It's there.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. But if you have commercial, it probably removes 95% of the ability.
If we remove the overlay, they still have to work with the city of Moorhead. I mean, looks to me like they're planning on working with the city of Moorhead.
The city has no jurisdiction.
They have no jurisdiction. I agree that, but they seem to want to work with the city of Moorhead.
Right.
Can I address that?
Sure. Go ahead, Brent.
Because in the hotel project, Christie was fantastic, and along with the rest of the city Moorhead officials, they bent over backwards to keep our process moving, and nothing but rave reviews for them. So yes, we fully intend to work together as much as we can. Thank you.
Well, one of the board's wishes is a difficult decision. I guess right now I'm of the opinion I'd go with the Planning Commission's wishes. So it's, although I understand both points, it's a difficult spot to be in here. So
I do have a point. I have a hard time when we have investors that are willing to invest in Clay County. And I just really have a hard time telling them, no, wait for 4 years or 2 years. I mean, I did vote against this at the Planning Commission. So I want that to be known, but it is really hard to tell investors ready to dig that, nope, wait.
Wayne?
Like I say, I'm going to support what these gentlemen want. And regarding what Mike Hewlett said, it's hard to disagree with Mike, but one can disagree without being disagreeable, and Mike's always been like that. And I admire him for that quality.
At this point, I was at the planning commission meeting, and I hate to go against what planning commission recommends, because that's what they're there for. But at this point, I will make a motion to remove the overlay.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
I will call the roll on this.
Yeah, call it.
Vicki?
Campbell.
Aye.
Gross.
Yeah, aye.
Ingersoll.
Yes.
Mojo. Yes. Wayland.
No. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
So this property now, for what they want to do, Tim, would require no infrastructure needs?
No infrastructure needs, no. I do have to check to see, in one of our amendments of the ordinance a while back, there's a possibility that they may need to apply for conditional use in this, even for commercial use in the commercial zone. But I will check on that.
And will there be access limitations to the north there?
Access, they're going to have to talk to, I guess I'm not exactly sure where access is, but access will be off a city street, so they'll need to coordinate with the city for that. Okay.
Anything else? Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, last item on our agenda is approval of proposed change in license numbers, person served by Tomorrow LLC, doing business as Anchorage.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How about, should you guys introduce yourself first, then I'll start us off then? Okay, but have a seat first.
Yeah, sit down.
I'm Karen Wilson, owner of Tomorrow LLC, DBA Anchorage Treatment Center in Moorhead.
Chairman of the Commission, my name is Keith Hillsheimer. I'm the program director for Mercy Treatment.
Okay, so Anchorage is a business that has a chemical dependency treatment center, and they recently purchased a property at 725 Center Avenue in Moorhead. And I'm going to have them tell you a little bit of history about their organization. But basically what we're here today for is, in their new property, they would like to add 6 more beds to their site to serve 6 more clients for residential chemical dependency treatment. And I believe there's a need for that. We would like to see people placed in their own community rather than having to send people away to get that kind of treatment. So Carmen, how about if you just tell them a little bit of history about where you used to be and how you came to the 725 Center Avenue site?
Certainly. In 2007, I opened at the Townsite Center at 810 4th Avenue South, and last June 1st, we were notified that we needed to evacuate the building because they had other plans for the building. And since then, they've turned it into what I believe is lofts apartment for what I understand student housing. And at that time, we started the site search for what we found was at 725 Center Avenue, known as the American Square Building, which we were able to purchase with the mind expansion to expand because of the need for services, more beds for our recovery center. That's kind of the history and how we got where we're at. It has been approved for the expansion. We've always been licensed for 16. We've had 10 because of limitations in space at the Townsite Center, and but we have the space for the extra 6 beds in the American Square Building, and would like to expand to the 16. The license already covers 16 beds, but it needs to have host county approval, and that's why we're here today. It has been approved by the fire marshal, Jack Nyberg at the city, Bruce Jaster with the Department of Health and Environmental, Chad Stanglin at, he's the fire marshal. And I think that's NDHS.
So you've been licensed for 16. You just haven't had the ability to, or the facility to handle the 16.
Correct.
So,
correct,
okay.
space limitations.
Any other questions for these?
Thank you. I was reading some of the information here about, Anchorage, whatever, and I noticed that there was, some information here about police calls, and I'm not sure what CFS stands for.
Oh, it's right on there, calls for service.
Calls for
Okay.
service. Yep.
And it says 53 in January 2014, in January 2014 or 2014. I can say with certainty that we didn't have 53 calls at Anchorage. We probably had 3 or 4. That building is a public building, and there were unlocked entrances, and I know there was calls over there for homeless people in there that weren't associated with our building or whatever. In fact, we were kind of the watchdogs for the building, and if we ever saw anything, then we would call the owner and they would come over. So I'd say of the 53 calls, 4 or maybe 5. I didn't keep a log because it doesn't happen that often. So I just want to hear that.
You haven't had any concerns from law enforcement regarding this request?
No, because when they do the calls for service log, they just log it to the site. So he said,
Right.
I can't really tell you, but he said, I assume most of them were for Anchorage. He said, but we don't log that. So,
I think half of those calls were for one person.
Yeah. I would say if you had 50-some calls, we'd probably have law enforcement here with more interest in this.
oh,
so.
correct, yeah. And no calls yet this year.
Well, in the site you're proposing, or the new location, it's a commercial area, so I don't see. Wayne, you had a question?
You mentioned student housing is going into the Old Town Site Center. Where did you hear that? I was under the understanding it was not for student housing, it was for something else. Not that it has apartments, but not necessarily for student housing. Okay, good. And I was involved with the Northern Lights Library Network, I still am, who had their offices there, and now they're at Moorhead State, Minnesota State University in Moorhead. And I can see why there were several calls from just people wandering in and out of there. It was not for your facility at all, that I would be aware of. So I support what they want, and I so move.
I have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just
Kevin?
a couple of questions. I see here where it obviously it meets the zoning requirements of the city of Moorhead. Are these types of residents, are these ones who have voluntarily gone in, or are these ones that, has it been court ordered?
Sometimes. I mean, sometimes the court might say, this person needs to have a chemical dependency evaluation and then follow the recommendations of the evaluation.
Okay.
And so then the recommendations might be, you're going to go to treatment.
Okay, and so,
Either.
but if there were to be a patient of risk, would they be likely to be sent to that facility?
They wouldn't be sent to that facility if they were like, maybe at risk of harm to self or others. No, and if they became that way, it's likely they would be taken out of that facility.
And I'm glad you just said that, because that was the point I was getting to themselves or others. And, we have facilities where certainly these are good because they can help them get back on their feet and move on. But there are those others who repeatedly offend and can cause harm to others. And I would not want to see that in our Center Avenue in downtown where we'd have people like that.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always a risk, but
I
for the most
understand.
part, yeah, they do a really nice job with treatment there.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Speaking from my role as Assistant County Attorney that works the mental health and chemical dependency cases, we are constantly faced with a lack of chemical dependency services in the community. And it is local, but it also is statewide. So if we had an individual that we commit as chemically dependent, they often don't have a place to go in the entire state. They're put on a waiting list. Anchorage might be able to fill some of those gaps. They may not for some of the more serious folks, but certainly at the point that they're discharged from a state facility, if they could be discharged locally faster, then that would open up those state beds to put more of the serious folks in those state beds, because we really have like a problem where people go to the state beds and they get stuck there because they don't have a community placement to be discharged to. So it's a funnel problem, and then the people that really need those state beds get put on a waiting list and they don't have access to the state services that they need. So from my perspective, in those chemical dependency cases, I mean, we really need the increased chemical dependency services in our community. And in fact, the state is actually going to, and have for many years, been going to more of a community model for chemical dependency treatment. If you've heard, I think Rhonda Porter was here for the legislative session. One of the proposals for the next legislative session is to close the Fergus Falls care facility, which is the CD facility where we most often send our chemical dependency committed folks to. And I know as soon as we heard that, we said, well, where are these people going to go? We don't have a lot of community space for them. And so I didn't know that this was in the works with Anchorage, but when I heard, certainly it would be supported by our team at Social Services and the County Attorney's Office as well.
So,
Thanks,
Jan. That's helpful. Where this is located at 725 Center Avenue, when these patients are there, do these patients come and go? Are they, once they're there, they stay inside there?
It's a temporary housing residential inpatient treatment center. Anywhere from 30 days to 90 is typical.
But when they're there, do they?
Are they within the facility?
Yeah. Do they leave? Do they have access to the public community? And
We have a level system. People that first arrive are on admission to the facility 48 hours, and then as they progress in the treatment program, they earn levels of advancement. But no one leaves the facility just walking up. They have to sign in, sign out. We transport people to all their medical appointments and all that stuff. So wherever they go in the community, like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, they go to the Y. And so, but we transport and we pick up. In level 5 is the highest, and that's where maybe they can go. Generally, a lot of these folks have families and places, so they can go and spend some time with their family and practice transitioning back into the community.
I was just geographically trying to place where 725 is, and
Across from Wells Fargo Bank.
okay, and it's also a neighbor then to the new billiards bar.
Yep.
A nice handy spot for them. Okay. That's why I was inquiring as to if they.
I'd like to address a little bit on what she was speaking about. We have a waiting list. Typically, we get 10 calls a week to place somebody. We have a waiting list of 8 people standard, and as soon as there's an opening, there's someone to fill it. So I just wanted to speak a little bit on and confirm that there is a need in this community for this type of service, is a bigger need.
And in terms of the client admission, we have admission criteria, and everyone that comes in the facility, I personally go over the referral information to make sure they meet our criteria. And if they're if they have significantly more problems than what we would be accustomed to handling, then we can deny that and just say that they need a higher level of care. So I personally go with the people that submitted.
Thank you. Anything else? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Great,
Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else for the board? Nothing? We're adjourned.